Welcome, you tongue-tied T-Rexes of the Forge. When last we saw our rusty iron meat hook knife, the most important forge weld had just failed and I was struggling to reposition these two pieces for a second attempt. If you want to see every gory detail on how it came to this, you can check out part 1. After clanging things back into place, I repeated the tack weld with the addition of a third tack point in the middle of the knife. I think it was that extra bit of stability, but for whatever reason our surfaces take to forge welding, and although the weld isn't perfect, it's complete enough to make a solid knife, and we're just going to live with it. So let's move on to these hooks. After all, they're the real meat of this project. So as I'm hammering in the bevel, the blade starts to do this banana curve maneuver on me. And I find myself striking on the spine and doing some things that I was trying to avoid. So I may not be able to forge this as thin as I planned, which will put our iron hooks in a little bit of jeopardy from the extra grinding that will be needed. But it will make the quench a little less nerve-wracking. I gotta take a break. It's gonna be a good chance for me to let this sit. I'll come back to it when it's cool, handle it, look a little more closely at some of the areas, take a close look at how I want to continue to shape it or grind it, and I also have to work out how much of that I'm gonna do before I take on the handle and start shaping some of the elements of the handle. Well spoken. I'm gonna knock off all the tack welding I can find before flattening the spine area back on the anvil. So as I mentioned, at the end of this project, that forge weld is not going to look terribly solid. But it's holding up to hammering in all kinds of directions here, so I'm not worried about it. It's just going to add to the rustic appeal of the final knife. While we straighten this in the vise, let's hammer in some dimples on the back to mimic the rusted out forged look of the original hooks. Now it's time for the mind-boggling task of moving these legs around to form our guards. See, you go that way, no, you go that way, no, you go that way. And you go that way, and well, As I get into this, it becomes clear we may have a problem. It's not like it's a bad tang. It's a meaty tang, but look how big this knife has gotten. I'm just not sure it's enough tang, and it's going to go on a diet. I'm going to take the edge back a quarter of a centimeter or something, a couple millimeters. Then I'm going to take some off the sides. It's probably going to lose about half of its current weight, maybe a third, but it's still going to be a big beefy knife. I just don't know. I don't know if that can do it by itself. So I'll probably get rid of this back part of the guard, bring these two down, forge weld these three together, and still try to make a forward guard out of that. And that would be a much less taxing approach for my skill level. And I think cosmetically, actually, it'll work out better too. So let's backtrack a little bit and plan on forge welding these three pieces together. It's the same problem here as before. Some of the force applied to the rods are in the right plane to do some forge welding, but because they're round, the tendency is just to slip past each other, and it's clear that I'm just fighting myself. So they'll be twisted up, and then we'll forge weld them successfully. The two arms of our rapier-style guard have to be drawn out. To my surprise, none of the ends are splitting. It's a straight blade so far, and that's a great way to start the rough grind. At this point, ferric chloride is applied to see where our hooks are. It's not going to etch the iron as aggressively as it etches the rest of the steel, and as you can see, they're still intact. But we still got a lot of meat to take off this knife. I'm a little bit worried. We might lose one or two of them. We're not going to have a traditional guard on our wooden handle. That's going to be in the hooks as they come out. But it would still be nice if the handle flushed up in some way against the tang, at least a little. This filing is very imprecise. As you can see, I don't have a way to put a file guide on there. So we're not going to get perfectly square shoulders. But that area is going to be sort of hidden, and it's a rough style knife anyway. It's just more rustic appeal for me to love. Now I know that I am preaching to the choir when I say that in a knife maker's workshop there are few things as treacherous as steel foil. Thermal cycled our knife will be. I picked that up with a force. I've used Rutland's furnace cement for jamon, and then it's going to be quenched in Parks 50 oil. It was tempered in the kitchen oven at 390 degrees for an hour and a half twice. Pro tip, if you guys are tempering inside in the kitchen like this knife was, you can wrap it tightly in tin foil and it'll help prevent some fumes from the quench oil escaping during the tempering cycle. So here's our finish grinding, and this is where we're going to try to remove as much scale as possible while establishing a nice slicing blade geometry and preserving as much of our iron hooks as possible. Let's put it back in the ferric chloride and see where we're at. So there are two hooks. We've already lost part of one. And here's some forge scale with some decarburized steel around it, which I'd like to grind out. It just doesn't etch as dark as the rest, and it looks a little bit uneven. We won't get it all out, especially this big dimple here, but we might get some of it out. We just have to be careful with those hooks. You know, I don't want to lose any more of this one especially, but I don't know. It's going to be tight. We're just under 0.5 millimeter on our final edge thickness. For the handle, I'm planning on using this beautiful stabilized curly Tasmanian blackwood. Where did I find such an A+ specimen? Well, just like Alex Steele, I started using greenbergwoods.com. The picture online is that of the actual piece of wood you will receive, and it is super high quality stuff. I've been nothing but pleased with all of the material I've got from them. It's been fantastic. If you type in Beetle, all caps, at checkout, you get 10% off your order. The channel gets a small kickback on that. It's just a win for everybody. And I wouldn't be telling you about it if I wasn't thoroughly impressed. You're going to see a lot more of their woods on my projects in the future. So go check them out, guys. I think you'll be happy. Let's get serious for just a minute. I have to talk to you about your Tang hole. It's okay. We all have one. Well, all knives have it. Some knives have them. We'll be placing a round Tang hole at the bottom of our handle for a pommel pin, which will be threaded. So let's thread that pin. Hey, we did it. We ground a flat area on our Tang. We'll cut out a groove and our threaded pin to go over that, and then we'll peanut butter chocolate the two together. They should be plenty strong to pull our handle taut together by threading a pommel on the end. No one freak out. It's structurally sound. Okay, don't be a Tang hole. All right, back to our handle. Nerp. Looks like I went a little too deep there. I didn't realize how deep into the handle the widened portion of that hole went before it narrowed down, and I eroded right through. So no problem. We'll just start over here and break off a drill bit. Okay, third time's a charm with this stabilized spalted maple burl. We're good to go. G10 has been added to either side of our wood handle for effect, and it's time to thread and shape our pommel. This is some wrought iron that Alex Steele sent me. I really appreciate him. It's not going to be anything too fancy here. It's going to be rough and tumble like the rest of the knife. Some furnace cement is going to go over the threaded hole to keep those threads nice and healthy while we scale up the rest of the pommel to match our guard. The knife is ready to etch, so we'll wrap it with a towel and start forming our guard, our sort of rapier style D-guard, or I don't know what you would call this, but so I really thought the guard, if it were all set up, would get in the way or get deformed or something would happen to it. And so I put off shaping until now, but I think next time I would probably do this prior to heat treatment. Even with a wet towel on the blade, this is really wigging me out. Luckily nothing got scorched and our temper is intact, but like I said, I probably should have done this earlier in this process. Then we'll take and use Walter Sorrell's hybrid polishing technique with lemon juice on our hamon and get everything glued up. This is going to be a love-hate knife. I really love it, but some people are absolutely going to choke when they see it. The welds are stable, but I wish they were cleaner. I'd be happier if we could have held on to more of the iron hooks on the side of the knife. I'd make a round pommel next time too. But all in all, it's got all kinds of character and a good story. It's going to go to a friend of mine who will use it at barbecue competitions. Were all the hooks iron? I don't know. Looking at this, some of them may have been mild steel. Do you guys love it or do you hate it? Sound off below, and I'll see you next time.